Wayne's World was such a big success for Paramount that its sequel was rushed into production to capitalize on the first film's momentum. Unfortunately, the best efforts of the cast and crew couldn't equal the success of the original. This is the story of Wayne's World 2 with director Steven Surgic.
Well, two things happened. One thing was that, yeah, you're right. They realized, in their wisdom, and I mean, you can say a lot of negative things about studios and networks and whatnot, but the reality is they know the business very, very well. And they realize that there's a wave that's coming off, like a shock wave coming off of Wayne's World 1. Wayne's World 1 hit a nerve. It was lightning striking, whatever the cliche is. And, they know they're not going to repeat it pretty much, but they also know that if they do it quickly enough, the remake, they will be able to ride that same wave for a little bit longer. That's the theory of getting it done quickly, because I constantly was bemoaning the fact that we were rushing things that shouldn't be rushed. We should be doing quality work, etc. And that was the response I got back. And it was actually largely, I think that they were correct. Every day that we waited for that show, for the production of Wayne's World 2 was like a day that the wave was getting smaller. When I came on board to do the show, there was a script, essentially. It was based on a second or third draft of a script that Mike had been working on. It was kind of based on the movie Passport to Pimlico. Are you familiar with that old movie, the old British comedy? It's a story about a small place in the UK, a small town in Pimlico, which they find some reason, I don't know, some constitution in a basement somewhere that they realize that they can be an independent place. They can be an independent country, even though it's a city. They can have their own money, and so they endeavor to separate from the Great Britain and to become their own city-state country. And so what Mike did is he took that story that I thought was an ingenious idea and kind of superimposed it on the place that Wayne lived in, Scarborough / Chicago. I forget what the suburb was. So the idea was that the two of them, Dana and him, get into a thing where they end up crashing through a wall and they find an ancient piece of paper that declares their suburb basically as an independent country. And so they head off, and the movie is largely them sort of becoming the king, the aristocracy of this great new nation. There was money that's printed with their picture, and and on it goes. So that was the idea, and that was the script. And I came on board, and I pre-produced for about 2 to 3 months. I pre-produced that script. I storyboarded it completely. We located it. We were casting it, and then I will never know the real reason for what occurred, but we were all called in, Mike and Dana and I, into the office, the principal's office. That would be Lauren, and eventually it was Sherry Lansing as well. I think they take us over there to get their real spank. But we were told that the whole story was considered, the whole script was considered plagiarism. And I know enough about sort of comedic writing to know that you can stand up or you can parody another movie. You can parody a person. You can parody, in America, this is a great tradition of parody where you take somebody else's work and you superimpose your characters on it. Away you go. Saturday Night Live was built on that. So it was sort of a shock to us all that we were being sued and that we weren't going to be able to do this movie. Shocking. And so it was deemed unproducible, and we had to move on. I said, well, that's that. I guess I'm going home. And no, we're going to do another movie, and it's going to be about this. And we sort of, Mike and Lauren and Dana sat in the room there and pitched out ideas and argued about it, and it went back and forth. And in 2 weeks there was an outline that we basically started shooting. It was, or maybe three, not more than 3, probably closer to 2. It was mind blowing how fast it happened. The Turners also jumped in. They were sort of the ones that held it all together in terms of there's a lot of disparate elements that they kind of wove together, and they did the sort of the heavy lift on it. And a lot of the set pieces written by individuals, et cetera, et cetera. But that was really the way it broke. So there was less than a couple of months. There was a couple of weeks to do the show. And I wanted to leave. I was like, well, I can't do that. I don't even know how. I don't have a clue how to make a movie in months, let alone weeks. So I went to leave, and they said I couldn't. That it was like I would be legally, I would be exposing myself to all kinds of damages. And so I had the same as Mike. Mike got the same lecture, and we all kind of snuck into the parking lot and hid in the shadow of a vehicle, some car there, the Paramount parking lot, and I talked it through, the three of us, what we were going to do. And we didn't really know. We were going to talk to lawyers, we were going to talk to our mommies. I don't know what we were going to do. But as it turned out, we did what they told us to do, which was make the movie. Mike is a comedy machine. He has he's a very clear idea of what will work, what won't work. And guess what? He's right about that, always, or almost always. And he's clear about it. And for me, it was not a complicated relationship at all. We kind of talked about how we would work. We made an agreement not to rat each other out to the studio or to Uncle Lorne, which worked, I think, right through to almost the end. But that, the fact of the matter is that we didn't really have any bad times on the show. It was great. So was Dana. And the only time things got really squirrely is when someone at the studio, like the head of the studio or someone say to you, tell Mike that he can't do this, or tell Mike we have to do that, or we're going to use this now instead of Mike's idea. Well, it's Mike's. The sooner that we get on board with the idea that it's Mike's movie, probably the better, thought I. And I was right. If we'd stuck closer to those values, I think we would have done better. But that's history. And during the making of the show, he was pitching me Austin Powers, trying to, and I mean, pitching me, he had it down to he had the music, the teeth, the characters, and he would run it in his home for me, and an hour and a half of it. And he has a very clear idea of what is funny, and he knows it's funny, and it's very sellable. So I didn't really see what the difficulty was. I understood that. I'm a great audience. I know how to articulate it on film. I know not to get in the way of it cinematically. I know how to time that. I know how to edit it. I know not to use long lenses. All the above. I brought all my experiences from Kids in the Hall to that, and then I learned just a ton from him. I just learned so much. And the reality is, of course, many people contributed a lot to that, to Wayne's World 2. Warren Michaels, the Turners, both poured so much into that movie in terms of ideas that worked. But at the end of the day, it was it was Mike's show. So I know that somewhere along the line, I don't know if Dana got lost in the shuffle or if it was managers that got involved, but we got involved in a discussion about writing in some scenes that would be with Dana alone, like Dana with his girlfriend, Dana with his buddy, Dana figuring things out. The Garth character, of course, and it was a really good idea because it all balanced and it gave rest to the main players. And as a main player, Lauren used to say, in order to make an entrance on the stage, you first have to make an exit, and that's true. And it took a little while to understand what that all meant, but it meant a lot.
I have got to get you to L.A. You are buried here.
Why do you hang around with these guys?
Because they're fun. If I wanted a guy that was all drive and ambition, I could have stayed in Hong Kong. I think you underestimate them. They're really sharp.
Stop it, leprechaun man!
Garth, chill.
Common people.
What
I
are
had
those
the
monsters
luck
to you,
later.
sweetie?
I'm not.
Sweetie.
Stop it.
Sweetie. Sweetie.
Come
Come on, sweetie. Come on. Pixie dust. Sweetie, it's me. It's me. The leprechaun.
Oh, yeah, these guys, really sharp.
Everyone has a Chris Walken story. Well, probably the most intimidating moment of my adventure, because I respected him so highly, and he's to say that he's a bit of a weirdo isn't disrespectful. I mean, he conjures that actively. He's a masterful actor. I remember him struggling with some lines, and he wanted me to get him somewhere on a card so he could see them. I couldn't understand. He was struggling and struggling. And then, of course, there's this moment where it just becomes, he's like glass. It just, everything comes out exactly the way it should be. He's not looking at the card. He's not looking at the line. He's not thinking about it. It's just like, this sort of this breezy perfection. He is the consummate actor. He's an incredible dancer. He has a bunch of scenes where he was dancing. And he's very, very strange. I used to poke away at him and, ask him what he does on the weekend and, who he hangs with. I used to badger him. And I remember that there was a real sort of curiosity that he used to, right before we were about ready to shoot, we'd rehearse it, we'd block it, we'd get the cameras and light it, and then we'd bring them back and we'd run it once and we'd go, okay, let's shoot this thing. And then he would, hold on. He'd put his finger up on 1 second and he would disappear around the corner, come back again. Okay, let's go. I wondered what the hell was that? Where'd he go? And that happened every take, or before every setup, basically, for the show. And I was like, I could not understand what was happening. And of course, your imagination plays tricks on you. You could think of all sorts of things that were going on behind there. But in fact, what I discovered was he had little. I saw this, like he ran around the corner there. I saw him grab this little piece of tissue. He opened up and he had like little slivers of apple in there. And he would take a little slice of apple and put it in his mouth. So he'd get the saliva going in his mouth so he could talk and then go back on the set. It was like the banality of the discovery was such a disappointment. I thought there was going to be something really magical happening. Now he was just acting. And one other thing about the guys, he really is sincerely attracted to anything. I remember there was a random production person that worked in the AV department was crying, and I was there, trying to figure out what I could do to help. Was there anything that we could do, etc. And I saw in my peripheral vision, I saw Walk-On kind of zero in on the fact that there was someone crying, and this like amused him greatly. It was like a fly to it, to the light at night. He just came right over, wanted to know, and just watched actually, from like all excited that there was actual drama going on. He's an unusual character, a very unusual character. And I heard one from a Teamster in Vancouver, because I do a lot of television work in Vancouver, and this Teamster I was talking to was taking him on a drive, and he was responsible to get him to set, and he's driving along, and Chris tells him to stop. He jumps out of the van, and he runs into a bike store. And the Teamster's like horrified that he tried double parks. She said, Walker is coming out with, he's bought a $10,000 bicycle. So, the Teamster said, well, we can put it in the back. No, he said, I want to ride. So he gets on his bike and he takes off. And now the Teamster jumps in the car, drives after him, loses him the next corner. And then he's driving around for like half an hour looking for him. Finally, he sees Walker walking out of a bookstore, used bookstore. And he pulls up, hits the brakes, is like almost crying. He's so happy to see that he's there and he's alive and stuff. And Walken has a book called Dante's Inferno in his hand that I guess he was riding by on his bike. He saw the book, used book on sale for $5, whatever, stopped the bike, got off the bike, went in to buy the book, came out, and his bike was stolen. He had ridden his $10,000 bike for, I think, 4 minutes, stopped, bought this book, and then gave it to the Teamster, signed it, and said, well, here, have you read it? Walker said, I've read it already. What, you haven't read it? Here, you read it. And he signed it, gave it to him. That was the end of the story. But there's a million of them, and each one is more exciting than the next. I can't tell half of them on this podcast because they're probably too X-rated.
Paramount Pictures presents
Extreme Close-Up!
Whoa!
That was just like the first movie.
One of the things that was happening in post was that he kept saying, don't try, you can't make this a homemade movie, Steve. You cannot. There's no time to do that, and it'll kill you. You will not be able to do it. So, one of the things that we learn about when we grow up is that there's something called these focus groups, and they watch your film and they comment on it, and then you get these cards that are, and all of a sudden you realize that someone who's 11 years old is actually writing the end of your movie. And, it's shocking. But sometimes their idea for the end of the movie is better than the person that came up with it. I don't know if this was the case. I know this. I know that when we finished the movie, our ending was considered weak. They wanted us to reshoot the ending. We sort of stuck our heads together. And I remember being in New York with Mike and another producer on the show, and we talked about what we were going to do. We ordered up a whole bunch of videotapes from back in the day, videotapes from the front desk, and we watched all these sort of iconoclastic movies again all night long, mostly just endings. And we made notes on them, and Mike had this idea of this montage of endings, which was a good one, I thought. And in less than 48 hours, we were in the air, literally, with I think there was a dozen aircraft on the move, simultaneously moving two different units from California to Arizona and to do all this shooting, and the unit was moving, and that was moving that way. It was kind of mind blowing, and we reshot the ending. Now, I also know that at the end of our testing, my director's cut got a score that was a full 7 points higher than any other score that we received. Now, I don't know if that was, Lord insists that it was a stacked audience, that it was paid for by the studio or something. But on the other hand, my edit was shorter by at least 8 or 9 minutes shorter than the final cut. I know that the music I had, I almost got all my music choices. I didn't get the Beatles in there, but I got a lot of my music choices. My cut was shorter. It was slightly balanced a different way, and it was just a more personal, contrary to everything Lauren had taught me. I did try to make it, my film, and it scored high. And then as we compromised to everyone, there's a lot of different people suddenly weigh in after your director's cut. You are really, really protected to do your director's cut, completely protected. There is all but an armed guard at in the post-production facility. No one comes near you. You get your time. Now your time is contracted because of the realities of what was going on, but I was protected. I could do whatever I wanted, and I did, and I scored high. Then what happens is everyone comes in, the studio comes in, the actors are represented by their managers. All of the screens become a huge political process. It's like trying to figure out like a peace process in the Middle East. Everyone's getting something. What are they getting? Is this going to work? I would get 100 notes. I'll go in and recut those 100 notes. And you don't want to take the arm of your baby off, but if it has to be done, you'd rather do it yourself. You'd rather not let anyone. And I had that choice. I could have let somebody else finish that, and I didn't. I did it myself. And I went back, so I wanted to see it all happen. And I saw the next test. We'd fly to New York and watch the audiences somewhere in Jersey, and then we'd come out, we'd look at the scores, and we'd scratch our heads, go eat dinner. They all yell at me, they make some more changes, make the notes, go do it again. And at the end of it, we just ran out of time. It just sort of ran out of time, and our scores were, as a matter of record, they were down from my first screen. So I don't know. I like my edit better, obviously, but the new ending was kind of fun. There's some hard laughs there. What I found really interesting in the whole process is I learned what the effects of an early hard laugh in a comedy indicates to the audience that it's actually a comedy and that it's okay to laugh, and it affects your scores right across the board. I also noticed that the temperature of the arena or the screening room really affects your scores as well. A nice cold room gets harder laughs, and that's probably why a lot of those talk shows are like refrigerators. They got everybody jittering on the edge of their seats. Ha 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 ha. Letterman used to do that. He used to have a room. His studio was very much like a deep freezer. But anyway, so I would try to turn the temperature down. I would try to keep it overcrowded. I would try to get a hard laugh at the beginning. I used every trick in the book to get it up to where I wanted my, and it worked. And I got high scores, and no one else. And it was never repeated. And that's because we were cutting the shit out of it. Like it became compromised a little bit. So that's what happens. And if I had been like a 900-pound gorilla, like the director that if I had those powers, maybe I could have retained that and protected it. But I don't even know if that's even possible, because there was so it's like there's so much money involved, and there's so much pressure, and there's so much at stake that it just becomes, more people have to be involved, and that is the nature of the industrial film. I call it the industrial film with great respect for it. But I love big comedies, and I love big movies. But it's difficult. The more money you have, the more compromises usually have to be made. When I say we ran out of time, I meant it. Like, we ran out of time. We just had to, at a certain point, the person that runs the post-production facility there, I forget that great guy's name. He says, okay, we have to make prints tomorrow. So, you're done. And he's not talking to me. He's talking to everyone that's involved in it. And so, yeah, we ran out of time. I mean, I don't know. There was a few different endings that I had, as I mentioned in my cut, and there's no real percentage of me saying, how much greater or expounding upon the details. But I had a slightly more, I would say, a more satisfying ending in my cut. But no one will ever know, because that's just hearsay. So.